Hello, viewers. I'm SB, and welcome back to Roadwarden, where today we are in a grim state and fully cut off from everything and everyone that might offer us any kind of support. We are going to have to solve some problems with some quickness. However, before we do that, I want to take a moment here and talk about something that happened in yesterday's episode. And I didn't talk about it yesterday when it happened, although if you're paying attention and you're as sensitive to this stuff as I am, which is to say probably if you are a non-binary or other trans person in the audience, you probably did notice that I reacted. I want to talk about Vashel. So, I want to start here. I want to cut a very careful line. And I want to start here by saying that I think the writers of the game have their heart in the right place. I am not detecting the vibe of any malice or anything. Like, good on them for including a canonically non-binary character. Granted, a canonically non-binary character who is first described by what genitalia they have, as though that's a normal thing to do, to just say to a stranger about people you know who are not present. And secondly, who is immediately violently killed. But I don't think this is this is a setting where bad things happen to people. And especially in the context of Vashel being part of a polyamorous triad situation and stuff. It doesn't feel to me like it's malicious. But when we found Vashel's body yesterday, they were referred to with masculine pronouns and the body was described as male immediately, right? It was very similar to that initial conversation with I can't remember if it was Ephraim or Ela, about Vashel, where it was like, we're going to lead with the genitals and then I'm going to tell you that they are not a man. But it hurts more when you're standing over their corpse while it happens. And if you're not trans, then maybe that's not. If you spend much time around trans people, or you read much writing by trans people or about trans people, you've probably come across the term dead name. And if you look that up on Wikipedia, it's going to give you some version of, this term. It talks about like a name that is the name or the old persona is dead to the new person. That's where that comes from. I don't 100%. Those sources also talk about the term being invented in like the 2010s, which doesn't feel right to me. I'm not going to get into a whole unrecorded queer history thing, although a lot of queer history is very unrecorded, which makes stuff like this tricky. But what I will say is that at the very least, that is not the only thing we mean when we say dead name. It's also sort of a grim, wry reminder, because a lot of trans people's humor about transness has a pretty dark edge to it, because of course it does. How could it not? It's also sort of a grim reminder that this is probably the thing that the cis people are going to call you when you're dead. It's the name that will be in the obituary. It's the name that will go on the tombstone. Because we do not expect. I want to be careful about how I say this too, because I do not want the cis people in the audience to be upset or to feel insulted. But trans people do not expect necessarily for cis people to defend or put forth any effort toward the reinforcement of the trans person's real identity when the trans person is not there to put some weight behind it themselves. And that expectation comes from a lot of real world experience. So when you see a dead non-binary person immediately get masculine pronouns, as you're still standing over their corpse, it definitely feels like that. It definitely feels like that expectation that we all have, that the moment the body is cold, all of a sudden they're going to have no fear treading on it. And that it just kind of hurts. It just hurts to see it. So yeah, I don't think that the writers did it with malice. It doesn't feel that way to me. I guess I'm basing that entirely on vibes, and hopefully I'm not like super wrong about that. It was probably just like they didn't realize. But that sucks. Please don't do that. If you are writing a thing that has a non-binary character in it, please don't do that, and please try to be respectful of people and their identities and whatnot in the real world. Anyway, sorry, I didn't want to turn it into a whole thing, but kind it's kind of worthy of, at least that much of a thing. Okay, so barely standing, basically starving. This is very fixable. Let's go ahead and eat at least once. What does it say when we are at 2? We experience no penalties or bonuses. I don't see any reason not to go up to 3. At 3, we get a bonus when overcoming physical struggles. I wonder if we would have had an easier time with the wolf if I had been better fed when we did it. I wonder if that would have helped and maintained some of our stuff here. But here we are at this watchtower. Now, it would seem that the shortest path back to somebody who is willing to help us, to shelter us, would be south. We could get back to the Pelt of the North pretty quickly. Unfortunately, we know that the last time we were in this area, there were goblins, right? There were hostile creatures. And while I am not necessarily terrified of goblins in a greater sense, I think that in the condition we're in right now is probably not a good idea to engage in any kind of combat or situation that could turn into combat. We can try to go north and hope that the path back to Foggy's is short enough. How much time do we have? 7 hours before dusk. We do not have any reason to think that there are other villages here, right? Nobody has talked to us about anything else. In theory, somewhere out here is Gloscia's band. Also, apparently there may be some people that we have just heard of for the first time. Find the Roadwarden would be the right place to do this, right? Yeah, Glossia of the Bandits was trying to help him. Okay, we don't have what we were told by Theus's daughter marked in our log here, but there's some other group of people out here in theory that we could run into. Worst case scenario, I suppose we have this save that we can come back to if we do end up starving to death in the night, though. Okay. So there is no sign of people around this tower. The door is open. It looks like the wall has maybe seen better days. Let's just take a look around here for a second. Let's examine the campfire spot at the fence. You see a shattered bowl, the remains of a meal from many years ago. However, the firewood and the lonely stool are not too old. You don't doubt that the watchtower seems less threatening to wayfarers than the wilderness around it. I was thinking that my own self. What about the signpost? The wood and letters are damaged by decades of rains, frosts, borers, claws, and mosses. You scratch off some of the moss. The plank on the top points both toward the watchtower, where the letters spell south, and away from it, with the additionally carved north. The one beneath it points east, and this time you see a tidily written word painted on the wood in blue. Enchanting. Okay, so we're near where that enchantress is. In Hovlevan, enchanters are artisans specialized in filling ordinary items with magical pneuma, and sure enough, the arrow here looks more like a magic wand. The bottom plank, pointing west, has a picture of a tall tower on it, surrounded by little houses. The carving spells monastery, but the wood is covered in red paint, suggesting danger. I wonder, does this mean the monastery? Like this sign is telling us that we should really not expect any kind of settlement. I think that would make sense, right? It would be kind of weird for there to be a signpost at all here saying, hey, all the way on the other side of the universe, there is a monastery. But it's certainly not referring to anything inside of the heart of the wood, right? Maybe there's something interesting among the spruce trees. Do I want to get that close to the trees? If there is even a single agitated monkey in one of these trees, we could be in some grave, grave danger. I guess let's have a look. It must be a human-made copse. Only the smallest of the spruces are out of order, born of wild seeds. The largest trees are as tall as the tower itself, which surely doesn't help those who are meant to observe their surroundings. There are also some stumps, most of which used to belong to young saplings. These trees were likely meant to be sold to carpenters and coopers, but they were left alone many years ago. In the copse, you find wild fennel and lettuce thriving in shadows, and there are pears and berries growing among nearby trees and shrubs. Okay. So we did not actually gather any food, nor do I have the option. They need just a few more days before they'll be ripe. Okay. I guess let's approach the gate here. I'm assuming the approach to the entrance here is the entrance to the tower. If there is something hostile inside of it, it could be very bad news for us. You take a look at Agro. If necessary, it could bow its head and walk inside. The place should be a decent shelter for both of you. The planks are strong, heavy, well protected from rain and wind, and when you knock, they seem to be thick. While the door shakes at your push, it won't open. Defensive structures usually have a locking bar on the inner side, but you also see a large keyhole. You walk around the tower, making sure there are no open windows or other entrances. It doesn't look like you can get in without destroying the door, and doing so is going to make a potential entryway for wild creatures. And I am too weak to do it anyway. Let's just peek through the keyhole. You kneel down and take a peek. There's nothing in the hole, but the room is dark, with tiny bits of light passing through the crevices of the windows. You see the shapes of wooden furniture like tables, casks, and a ladder, but the only movement you notice belongs to the dust dancing in sunbeams. Okay, so not much we're going to be able to do with this then. Let's take a look at the gate. Setting up a firm wall in a place like this is a bit unusual. It goes on for no more than 40 feet until it connects with a natural rock face. Such a structure could be found near the city, acting as a checkpoint at which to stop any travelers to search through their belongings or request a fee. But in the middle of nowhere? Deer and other animals used to running here with no hindrance must have been more than annoyed. A risky investment. You touch the gate made of a high-quality wood previously soaked in oil, now mostly wiped off. It was left open, and you don't see any wooden bar that would be used to lock it. You try to move the cold planks, buried in dried-out mud, but with no luck. It would require some wearying digging, and I am really not prepared for that. So I guess we've got everything that we're going to get out of this, unless we can discover a key. Let's see about meeting with the Enchantress. The first part of the trail is narrow and overgrown. The steep crag in the south divides the lush forest in half. You barely recognize any shapes in the entanglement of grays, browns, and greens. The northern landscape, while similarly impenetrable, is the exact opposite. The meadow turns into barren hills and mountains, barely covered by grass and bushes. Maybe the riding ibexes of the clans people from the growing mountains would get through such a barrier, but there are no clans here. Huh. Oh, interesting. This area is larger than the normal viewing space. The road leads you downhill to the edge of a lake. The clearing around the dwelling is quiet, with no crickets, flies, or even toads. The grass is not even knee-high. There are no signs of a wharf or boats. The wall wasn't coated and has already been bitten by wind and rain. I look for an entrance. Okay, so it'll just move it around. Right next to the gate, a gargoyle, or a stone look-alike, kneels on a slab. It's dark purple, almost black, with yellow pointy teeth, though its half-open mouth has no tongue, and the creature doesn't move even an inch. The eyes have been replaced by crystals, red like currant juice. I do want to touch the gargoyle. I know it's not like... I just feel like I need to touch the gargoyle, okay? Your hand seems tiny when placed on the monster's shoulder, which is coarse and cold like a rock. You consider pushing one of the teeth, but the eyes of the gargoyle suddenly grow brighter. What do you want? I'm not expecting anyone. The words are coming from the monster's mouth, though it remains still. Stand in front of me. I want to see your mug. The growling voice belongs to a woman, but is lined with unnatural creaking. I don't know if I have a good drawl in me, I'm sorry. I step closer. The eyes don't rotate nor blink. Who are you? This is a little... This is a little, I think, like, unreasonably cheerful. Let's try distance. Let's try business-like for the moment. I'm Samhain, the new Roadwarden. I see. I don't leave my house often, but I may have a job for a traveler. You know who I am, right? Naturally. What do you call her? I'm gonna call her the Enchantress. We didn't have a name for her, right? It would be the one about the Spirit Rock. We don't know the name of the Enchantress. We know the name of the daughter. Okay. Enchantress. You for real? Don't you know my name? No, I'm sorry. I've never heard it. So, you lost your way and now you're wasting my time. Long pause. I'm Eudocia, the only enchantress you'll find in this land. And you're disturbing my work. I don't see people in the middle of the day. Return in the early morning or a few hours before dusk if ye have to. Best yet, don't bother me at all. The monster's eyes darken again. Your mount is ready to ride away. A few hours before dusk. My biggest concern with waiting until a few hours before dusk is if she doesn't know a way back, right? Like, or if she's not willing to let me stay. I'm gonna not press. I'm gonna try to solve this problem myself. Let's ride north and see what's what, and we can come back if it turns out to be something we can't handle. With no trees or crags blocking the sun, the road is bright and inviting. The simple bridge is centuries old, bitten by time. It makes you think of the dolmen you saw south of here. The torrent here is deep and fast, with plenty of fish. The boat is destroyed beyond repair, rotten, falling to pieces, with holes in the floor and on the sides, overgrown with fungi and moss. The thick shrubs lining the path are covered with thorns. Small birds are jumping from one twig to another, pecking at the brown berries. Knowing from the herbaria that the fruits are safe, you eat a few bittersweet ones as well. And I think I've read something about these fish. You see dozens of red and gray shells. As you walk by, they stay close, following your steps. According to the testimonies from a murder trial you've read about, they have long and sharp teeth, eat flesh, and could scrap your skull clean in a minute or so. I have no choice but to spend an hour here looking around. Maybe I can find something of use. I could just bail. I'm going to spend the time looking around. After what feels like an eternity of searching around the boat, the banks, and the shrubs, you sit down on the bridge to take a break, and then realize you haven't actually looked beneath it. You kneel on the grass and look into the darkness. And among the cobwebs and bugs, you spot an old piece of fabric pinned under a rock. You pull it out and find a rotting, torn pouch that contains a single dragon bone. You make sure you haven't missed the other ones in the dirt, but if they have ever existed, they've rolled down and sunk for good. Well, okay, a dragon bone's useful. Agro peacefully chews the grass, enjoying the sun on its back, ready to take a nap. Yeah, not just yet, friend. Let's continue northwest for another moment here. Uh-oh, danger music. The gentle road leads downhill, getting greener and less rocky the farther north you get. Just in case, your eyes run toward a few drier parts of the meadow, and you instantly shout at Agro to make haste. A pack of short-haired wolves, at least 20 members strong, is chasing after you. Their coats are a mixture of yellow, black, and white spots, as if someone threw mud and paint at them. Almost like hyenas, huh? They move toward the road with a human-like speed, and you realize only some of them are running straight at you. The others are trying to cut through my path. If it wasn't for your palfrey, the beast would have already caught up with you. Their trap was perfectly set up, not leaving you any path of escape. Your terrified mount is disciplined enough to stay on the beaten path, and even though one of the big-eared wolves almost sinks its teeth into your mount's thigh, you manage to squeeze between the hunters. For the next few minutes, you do your best to get further away, and while your gallop is indeed faster, the wolves easily shorten the distance by moving through the sparse forest. You ride past a wooden cabin placed in the clearing at the bottom of a rock face, but you can't stop while the pack is at your back. I do not in fact have anything I could use here. You think about your sacks and bundles, but the pack won't wait for you to sort things out. The group gets larger the further you go, as even more of its members, previously hidden among trees and grasses, now join the hunt, allowing their tired family members to slow down. You may be able to lose them after some time, but scaring or wounding some of them may force them to give up on their prey sooner. Yeah, well, unfortunately, I don't have anything of value. Just keep running. Our lives are entirely in Agro's hands here. Hooves. Our hands are entirely in Agro's hooves here. You focus on the road ahead, forcing your mount to speed up whenever a beast tries to catch it. After another few minutes, you leave the hills and enter the grasslands of a valley, but the pack doesn't give up on you yet. At least their numbers have stopped growing. You're already outside of their territory, and the handful of spotted, colorful shells also seem tired and are forced to stay on the beaten path. Yeah, without a palfrey, I would be super dead right now. You get out of the valley and follow another narrow path through the hills and trees, clearly shaped by humans, at least in part. The leaves and rocks start to blur into a vague memory, but after another few minutes, the howls stop. You don't slow down just yet. Yeah, these are some stubborn wolves. Best to give it a little bit of distance. You reach a gentle open path, seeing a lake to the west and hearing a gentle creak ahead of you. Agro is exhausted, but patient, more happy to survive than it is angry at your wanderlust. At least you can hope the pack will move to a different place during the night. I better get out of the saddle and let it rest a bit before I move forward. Interesting. The air is fresh, just as it was in the tavern. The light touches the road and shrubs, blocked only by the single willow, wild and untrimmed. You're by a lake, too large for you to see its other bank, but the local soil isn't too fertile. There are only a few trees on the horizon, while those struggling bushes and grasses fight with layers of rocks. A gray rabbit is cleaning its fur near the brook, but the sound of hooves makes it hop toward the nearest shrub. Right after it sinks into the leaves, you hear its squeal cut off quickly. Whatever its hunter was, it leaves behind only the rustling of the thicket and a trail of blood. You wait for a long minute with a hand on your axe, but the creature doesn't return. You relax a bit, then turn toward the stone statue of a young woman. Yeah, what's the deal with this? Such a monument would be a better fit for a temple or a rich city folk's house. Here, without any cover, it's already losing its shape from the rains and dust. Chunks of the face and hair have already broken off. It has detailed eyes and human-like proportions, and the clothes are like fabric petrified by a spell. The statue carries the usual traveling equipment, a walking staff, a gambeson, simple pants now covered by leaves. I look at the pedestal. Maybe someone left an offering there. Not to say we would necessarily take it, but you know. You dismount and approach the bushes covering the legs and the pedestal. You see some old wooden bowls as well as rocks. You try to push the leaves away, but their stems are thick and healthy, crowded with insects and spiderwebs. Until you remove the thicket, you won't be able to see if there's anything worth stealing. Thankfully, there are no thorns, and the touch of a leaf doesn't make your finger itchy. Well... okay, we are right by Foggy's, so we can absolutely take a moment here We can wash ourselves in the stream, just not in the lake. Yeah, I guess if I'm going to do any more labor, we should do that first. In about half an hour, I could use my axe to cut down the bushes and twigs. The thing is, I don't know, like, what this statue... If people are leaving offerings here, what are they offerings to, right? It's not stealing. An abandoned statue needs no gifts, I convince myself. If you say so. You know, in about half an hour, I could use my axe to cut down the bushes and twigs. You tether aggro to the tree, letting it choose between drinking, grazing, and napping. You prepare your equipment, keeping an eye on the bush where you saw the rabbit's last movements. You use your weight to move the plants to one side, then cut right above the ground. The stems are healthy and flexible, so getting through them is rough, but you have enough strength to deal with them in a couple of minutes, then throw them in the lake. The work goes on for a bit, but once you're done, the statue stands in its former glory. A couple of old offerings are still on the pedestal. Polished rocks, bone figurines, and moldy bowls and plates that used to store food. In one vessel you see a dragon bone. It's dark and could be older than a generation, but it would surely be accepted by any merchant. How do I feel about this? Does our character necessarily have respect for these kinds of old traditions? Probably, right? Also, it's only one dragon bone. It's not like a fortune. It's not an amount that's going to turn things around for us, probably. I'm going to leave it behind. It was left here for a good reason. I consider washing myself in the stream. The brook would hardly cover your feet, but you could sit on the pebbles and splash yourself with water. The oak ash soap you own can help you get cleaner. Yeah, I'll take a second and wash myself. Alright, as you wash your sweaty skin, Agro quenches its thirst and looks for intruders. Alright, we have 3 hours before dusk. Let's head up to Foggy Lake. So now we can just ride straight to here and hopefully not be too concerned about the wolves. Maybe. Now that we've lost the wolves, we could ride south a little bit. You know, there was that cabin. I think that's what this is. No, this is the cabin. Okay, but we rode right past these foraging grounds without, yeah. So we have time. Let's try to ride down here and see if we can, in fact, get anything. The valley is flanked by the hills. To the west, the grasses and bushes blend into the horizon and turn into another part of the forest. The southern hills are gray and tall, with fortress-like rock faces and a crown of conifers. The northern ones have countless sand-colored rocks, lumped together like piles of rubble and clay, bearing hardly any soil or weeds. The plants here are struggling. The grass is short and yellowish, sometimes dried out. The bushes have silver leaves, like many plants from sunny areas. The mushrooms can't hide in the shadows, but as you approach one, you see it's growing from the remains of a dead bird, while others are covering old branches and other plants. They won't last much longer. Well, at least it'll be easy to spot any larger beasts around. You have to squint to spot the first threatening creature. A runner is in the far east, close to the hills, though it completely ignores you, walking around and observing the grass, looking for its next prey. You don't have to worry about it for now. There are boot prints on the road, as well as in the short grass, fresher than on any other part of the eastern road. Since many mushrooms were cut away with a knife and you notice few berries on the shrubs, you conclude it's a foraging spot for people from the north, though there doesn't seem to be much food left. There are almost no prints leading further south. Yeah, further south's not like super pleasant. I could try to forage for a bit. You let Agro keep itself busy while you walk around looking for anything edible. It takes a fair bit of time. You don't plan to carry around raw mushrooms and bugs, and the wild vegetables need to be washed before you put them in your bags. You finally find a few handfuls of plants, fruits, and nuts. Next time, however, it's not going to be so easy, especially since the runner, a bird both taller and wider than you, observes you carefully, at first from a distance, then circling around you. After about half an hour, you hear its piercing screech. As the creature runs at you, shaking a beak larger than your head, you throw everything into a sack and get in the saddle, and yeah, we're headed up to Foggy's. The light shines on the water and the empty road. With no herbal beds or travelers in sight, the tavern looks like an abandoned hamlet. The tavern staff is sitting on the stairs, enjoying the light and silence as they share a roasted fish. Yes, there's nothing else we could do right now that would be particularly of value. I need to go collect my fish traps. Yeah. Part of me wants to ride back down to the watchtower and see if we can negotiate the area south, like as soon as we are healthy enough to do so. I just feel like it would be a good idea to have an outer circle negotiated. I don't know. So, okay, wild plants. It just went into the same. There's no differentiation between this and what we picked in the other place. I approach the foragers. Let's say howdy. One of them tells a story, but stops once you approach them. Ilan frowns. Aye? Is this, I don't know if this would be rude or not. You know, is this me inserting myself into something where maybe I am not welcome? I'm gonna go inside. Foggy is sitting on a stool observing the dishes in a bucket. They move and wash themselves without her touch. She welcomes you with a gentle nod. Remind me... healing potion. Okay, so we actually have the second recipe stuff now. We did get herbs from the heart of the forest. Unfortunately, what I do not have is 2 dragon bones, right? Oh no, I do. Okay, I thought I had gone... That's right. I left Howler's Dell with 1 coin still. So we could do this, and I could certainly use the vitality. I would certainly feel a lot better if we wanted to sleep here. It's going to cost me a point of vitality anyway. I can't remember. Going down to 0, we can have 0 vitality. It's just that if we take damage in that state, it's really bad for us, right? So what I would do is I would sleep here for free. Then in the morning, I would eat and then use the potion. And I would want to use the rest. I would want to make the potion now, definitely not on the morrow. I mean, it's going to put us in a pretty scary position in terms of resources on hand, but I can't just be walking around at 1 vitality. I need to get my armor fixed. Yeah, let's do it. Let's use the second recipe. You chop and grind over a dozen various herbs into a green pulp, making an ointment with a strong wound-warty smell. So far, so good. Then you spend long minutes at the table, constantly keeping the liquid on the brink of boiling, every now and then lowering and raising the small cauldron that hangs above the flame of an oil lamp. The boredom bites your fingers, but you don't even have the time to go grab some water to drink. You think of the alchemists who spend day after day repeating this procedure in their workshops. Hardly a tempting vision. Maybe a good insight into why we didn't end up pursuing this path. At least the room is now filled with a pleasant aroma, and according to what you hear from conversations taking place upstairs, the smell reaches the main hall as well. You pour the grass-green liquid into one of the earthenware bottles, then seal it. The potion's ready. Clean up everything, step away from the table. It's already late, and my eyes hurt. I'm gonna approach Foggy, if there's any chatting to do here. I show her the ocean necklace. Hey, you got any idea where this comes from? She doesn't reach out for it. Ah, one of those that shine in the sun. The folks from Gale Rocks make them from the shells and dead sharks they find on the coast. You ask about a probable owner, but she lets out a puff. Could be anyone. Okay, I bring news from old Pagos. It's not great. Listening to your tale, she rubs her forehead. Well, not what I was hoping to hear, love, but I'm glad you went there. Better warn the other settlements. Folks should know before they send their own messengers. It's going to be a rough few seasons for all of us. She pulls out a dragon bone from her pocket and tosses it in your direction. Here, good job. She steps toward the ajar door and looks at the lake. Did you want me to do anything else? She scratches the stump of her missing arm. Her powerful voice carries a hint of a threat. I need a soul who can handle a delicate task. And I'm not sure it's you, dear. Okay. Do I have other questions about the peninsula? What about... What was her name? I've already forgotten it. Not Arentius. The Eudocia. I know a fair bit about that house. It's not more than a few years old. It's east of the watchtower, surrounded with a wall. My Elon helped to build it. Svi as well, as did many from Gale Rocks. Eudocia enchanted things for all the tribes for years. That's how she got enough savings and trust to get the stone and wood she needed. She slept alongside the workers in the watchtower for months. I can't trust they'll build it right, she told me. Now she doesn't leave her home at all, just surrounds herself with walking rocks. She doesn't seek friends among the tribes. Maybe she's lonely, or maybe crazy, a witch. Okay, somewhat judgmental, but thanks. I don't think I've picked anything up that she's willing to, No, I don't have things, really. I do not have objects of value. Well, I could give her a coin for meals that we could buy when we're here. We know that iron scraps are of particular value in White Marshes, so if we could get together the 6 coins for this, we know what to do with it. Maybe I just hold on, because we have some food on us, right? I'm gonna actually have a little bit to eat right now. Oh, I can't use my inventory right now. Time for me to go. Can I use my inventory now that I'm outside the conversation? Yes. I just want to make sure that our nourishment doesn't completely bottom out when we're asleep. I could do this instead, but I don't think I need to, and if I'm going to use the potion anyway... maybe I'm not going to use the potion, though. The thing is, a coin is valuable, and we don't know how long it's going to take to earn another one. And I really do want to bump... I don't want to push my vitality up slowly. I want to go... Yeah, I want to go really hard. We're going to use this potion, so... We will sleep in the main hall, as she will allow. The rains once again hit the ground, interrupting your sleep. Another day of muddy roads. You lose your senses right after you lay down. In the middle of the warm, stuffy night, you are entangled by your dreams, too tired to fully wake up, too accustomed to having a mid-sleep break to just get back to sleep. You are between the realms, surrounded by visions so vivid you are tempted to reach out, touch them, and stretch them out. They are your playground. Okay, well, we could do, some classic lucid dreaming stuff. I wouldn't dare to disturb the natural flow of dreams. Am I a person who has a reverence for the natural flow of dreams? That could be interesting. Yeah, I think I'm going to accept them as they are and just use my semi-lucid state here to pay more attention, hoping to spot any visions they bring. It's an exhausting night. Agro keeps stepping in place or walking... Yeah, okay, we've seen this text. I go outside. I drink a healing potion. Let me make sure I'm not at a level of nourishment that's going to... Okay, you want restore health while sleeping or resting. I am still going to eat one more, even though I don't think this is going to hinder the potion, just because I feel like I should have more food in my belly than that. And then we'll go ahead and return to full vitality. And from here, we have some decisions to make. All right, I'm not allowed to help them hunt, even on a small hunt anymore. We had an option last night that was grayed out because of our vitality. Do I want to talk to Caius? I mean, I was just having visions. Maybe this is like a way we can get closer together. This is a bonding experience. My attempt at a bonding experience. So, Caius, your boss told me you have some sort of visions. He meets your eyes and straightens up, reaching out to you with his dirty hand. I allow him? It rests on your shoulders, light like a bird. Your nose tells you that he hasn't washed in quite a few days. Well, I'm probably not smelling any better. The right hears the prayers of the people. I mean, of the 10 cities. All the tribes, all the empress, and priests and merchants. All the tribes and the empress. All the empress would be a strange thing to say, given that there's probably, one. We thought things were lost, the glory behind us. Punished by humiliation for our weak hearts. He starts to shake his stump a foot away from your face. But there is hope. His voice gets stronger with every heartbeat, and a wide smile shows up under his beard. The right's test is behind us, and we, the sinners, have failed it. Now are the days of atonement, and of the new cities, with new tribes and the cleansed land. We, you know, have to fix ourselves. It's probably like we, like he's searching for the next word, right? Have to fix ourselves, change what we can, weed out our sins and bring fresh hearts to the holiest soul carrier, and let them guide us anew with new tablets and prayers and a new church, the only church, yes. He steps in place, bursting with excitement. I did not mean to excite him this way. He steps in place, bursting with excitement. All the rivers will flow as one wave, and the new cities, the reborn city, will wipe out the barbarians. He spits on the ground and send them back into their chains. He points his hand south. We will come through the ashes, reborn into a power greater than any fortress, than 1,000 dragons, than all the ships and armies. He steps back, lowering his head. I, the humble servant, was granted this vision. I'm not going to say you're insane. I think I'm going to try to stay friendly with him, but I want to do the one where it is noted explicitly that I am not with him on this. I nod enthusiastically, lying. That's great news. He turns away from you and approaches the wall. Take this word and carry it in your heart and on your lips. Be a part of the wave that swallows the faithless. Svi presses a clenched fist to his lips, stopping himself from laughter, while Elon looks at the prophet with concern. Don't encourage him, friend. It's not right. Okay, well, I wasn't, I was just trying not to be rude. Okay. So, I am allowed to ride back down here and check things out. We never have gone to where we think White Marshes is. By the time we get to the Enchantress's residence, it is going to be like midday again. Let's go this way. We'll fall back to the crossroads here, head in this direction, and I think this is the way to White Marshes. You're not used to the scents of the bogs, but you weren't expecting them to be so gentle. The humid air makes you think of smoked meat, and even though you ride by a few rotting carcasses and animal droppings, just as often you cross tiny meadows of pink, yellow, and red flowers. The noises tell stories of never-ending wars between the swarms of insects, frogs in their hideouts, snakes lurking among the purple grasses, birds patrolling the water and the sky, and the saurians preparing to strike from beneath the surface. You can't separate the sounds of the living from those of the dying, if they're even different at all. You reach a boulder in the middle of the road on the edge of the large pond. The road splits from here in 2 directions, but the only smoke you see is to the southeast. From the saddle, I see no creatures standing in my way. So the only smoke you see is to the southeast, and your options are to go south and go east. I think we were given directions. We totally were given directions. Can I remember when and where? Village has been struggling for years. Somebody told us with some significant detail how to get to White Marshes, and I think it's probably instructions for getting through this bit. So I'm just going to flip back through my notes about everybody real quick. Eudocia certainly didn't tell us anything of value. Ephraim and Eli get a very thin entry considering the amount of words they've said to us. Okay, it looks like I just don't have that information here. Oh, there's a whole glossary with a bunch of... Oh, man. Okay. It might be worth it for me to take a moment and read this. I'm not going to do it on camera. Oh, yeah, there's like a ton of information here. Okay. Maybe. I'm going to go east arbitrarily. And here come the happy music. The road takes you to the edge of the woods. A few trees have found lucky scraps of soil towering above the water, while others, shorter and not as lush, have roots sunk in the pond. Some of the plants were felled with tools, so the root itself isn't so dark, while the last few sunbeams are getting through the weaker branches on your left are surrounded by darkness and swarms of insects. Help me! Help! The sudden cry, as well as screams of pain, reaches you from between the trees. A woman or a child. It could be a trap, but like this is what I'm here for, right? Being a Roadwarden is helping people on the road, and also just like... I try to spot anyone? Among the green and red leaves, you don't see any unusual colors. Come to think of it, there's but a few creatures in sight other than the flies and mosquitoes. The dark-winged birds are quiet. The sparse toads let out sporadic, tense croaks. It may be a trap, but I think I'm going to fall into it on purpose. If it is one. I dismount and grab my axe. You lean toward the pond. It's cleaner than in other parts of the bog, allowing you to see the bottom. Parts of it are still more than knee-deep, and the sulfuric odor makes you step away with a frown. The brownish color can't hide all the bones and plant remains that are sticking out of the bed. Well, I'm already at minimum appearance, and I think taking a moment to strip to the waist probably, if somebody is actually in danger, probably is not a good idea for them. So I have no time to waste. I rush into the water. Yeah, I don't think we're going to take any real penalties there. You get slower with every step as your pants and boots are soaked in water and mud. The cold water makes you shiver, and the sulfuric odor makes you glance at the animal bones sticking out of the pond bed. The voice doesn't stop. You gather your bravery and move forward, disturbing the sediment so much that it forms a cloud of mud after every step. You run into the trees. I can't imagine I'm going to see anything by looking around, right? If we were going to see anything, it would have been listed up here already. I'm going to take a moment to observe the tree crowns, though. You move deeper in, but your clothes turn every step into a struggle. You don't spot anything peculiar among the branches until your eyes land on an unusual gray bird, which seems to open its beak just at the same time as you hear a painful shout. A dark shape is descending toward you from the very same tree. I catch it? Maybe. I'm in great shape. I wish I had a little bit more shit. I should have eaten more food. I'm gonna jump away. It's probably safer to jump away. The beast's pounce misses you. A dark, furry creature gracefully lands in the water, partially turning around mid-air, but as it growls, it doesn't charge at you yet, maybe not expecting your swift reaction. Still moving and keeping my distance, I take a look at it. The cat's legs are bent, ready to jump, wide and muscular. Its eyes, staring at you without a blink, are round and yellow, with pitch-black irises in the center. It's waist-high, with its chin hanging just above the water, and a jaw that could bite off your limb in a heartbeat. It has short hair and whiskers, and a nose as big as your hand. Even without the dirt, it's almost black, with glimpses of yellow that form a rose-like pattern on its sides and dots on its head. You can't see the creature's paws through the now clouded water. I mean, it cannot be in optimal pouncing shape with it submerged that much, right? The cat lets out a growl like a saw cutting a log. It's unscathed and confident. I do not think running away from this thing is going to be effective. I'm going to just take a defensive stance here. When you hear the flapping of wings, it's already too late. Bird talons sink into your shoulder, and once you get distracted, the cat darts forward, reaching for your thighs. You evade its first strike, but it then pushes your stomach with its huge paw, cutting through the armor. Before you can reach it with your blade, it's already out of range. You're bleeding. Your gambeson was already in such bad shape that it made little difference. The gray bird also flies away, now circling around you, gracefully avoiding the tree trunks and branches. It has a red tail and a short, curved, vulture-like beak. It growls, just like the cat did a moment ago, and you notice that the human screams have disappeared. So it's a mimic. So, it's 2 against 1. The cat looks into your eyes, then roars. As it moves forward, you don't see any wounds on its shell. Its companion circles around you, looking for an opportunity to attack from above. We can try to bail, I guess? I can't see how this could possibly work, though. I don't know what playing for time means in this circumstance. Like, I don't have any reason to believe anyone's coming to save me. I try to stay safe, looking for an opportunity to make a precise strike. It's not going well. The bird distracts you by pecking at your hair, jacket, and hands. You do your best to evade the cat's attack, then to strike it as it charges you, but your attempt fails miserably. It manages to reach your stomach with its claws, slashing through your jacket. Yep. I mean, what else could I possibly... If I could get rid of the bird, maybe I could handle the cat. You wait for the bird to dive at you, then take a swing, using your time to get further away from the cat. The blade sends the halves of the raven-sized creature into the water, to the enjoyment of the local scavengers. A few gray and red feathers are drifting next to you. I did not realize that would be so easy. I mean, again, there are die rolls happening behind the scenes, right? I raise the axe and look at the cat. The cat roars toward its dead companion, then looks into your eyes. Yeah, as it moves forward, you don't... because it's not wounded, is why. Alright, now let's try this. You do your best to evade the cat's attack, then to strike it. No, that totally didn't work. The cat observes you with new respect, surprised that you're still standing. It looks at its dead companion and, without a second thought, leaps away, then partially swims, crossing the pond with a speed matching your palfrey's gallop. You consider following it, but after it reaches a tree crown with just 2 jumps, then gets to another one within a single breath, you wipe your forehead and turn away. Gasping, wet, and frustrated, you hobble back to the beaten path. Agro seems worried, and you try to ease its soul with a few encouraging words, hoping it will leave you alone for a moment. You consider washing your clothes, but you'd need a wash tub for it, if not a stream. You put on as many dry clothes as you can find, hoping your wet boots won't give you a cold. Well, that isn't how colds work, so probably not. You ride along shallow waters on one side. I kind of can't believe that the cat was like, oh, you're tough. Okay, I'm going to leave now. But I guess, gosh, we're in grim shape again already. You ride along shallow waters on one side and flooded trees on the other. You reach what seems like the end of the road. The turn south is already overgrown, most likely abandoned after it was devoured by the bog. But as you look north, you see a wide clearing that, with time, has become a meadow, and a lonely hut at the end of an often traveled path. At first, you ride down slightly, following the twisted trail. Your palfrey takes slow steps forward, fighting with the dense mud left by the recent rain. There's plenty of puddles around, as well as brown, gray, and purple grasses, but all of them are too short for any lurking predators, and the few foxes you see far away don't pay you any attention. You pass by the fresh tracks of heavy, hooved beasts, but spot no wild game in sight. Your ears can't free themselves from the birds, rodents, and dragonflies, along with the splashes of your soaked clothes slapping against your mount. We need to ride carefully. If Agra's leg sinks into the mud, it may get broken. The further north you ride, the shorter the grass gets. These vast peat fields, broader than 2 or 3 villages placed side by side, are many years old. The turf bricks surrounding the solitary hut are still fresh, drying in the late summer light. The scent of this area is like that of no bog you've ever encountered. Instead of a sublime aroma of healthy soil, it's intense, sulphury, leaving an almost sour taste on your tongue. The short scarp is dripping with water, like a running sore of the earth, carved with spade and muscle. The house, made of birchwood, dried turf, and a blanket of soil, is a structure you're not too familiar with, but you imagine its interiors are much smaller than they appear to be. The walls are a few feet thick to keep in the warmth, and such roofs tend to get soggy until they collapse after a decade or so. The only soul in sight is sitting on the bench, stuffing his mouth with fistfuls of green leaves that he takes out of a small basket placed on his knees. I introduce myself, and for now stay in the saddle, because I'm afraid of opening my wounds any further. Still chewing, he mutters something in response, then shakes his hairy head, swallows, and puts the basket away. He stands up and takes a single step forward, approaching the edge of the scarp. His arms are entangled by green creepers, longer than he is tall. They rub against the ground after each step, and judging by the way they occasionally twitch, they're very much alive, even though you can't see where they originate from. Samhain, the Roadwarden, he repeats, this time clearly. He moves his sealed lips left and right, as if he's tasting your name, still not sure if he should swallow it or spit it out. Bathing in the bogs, I see. He mocks your wet clothes. Your face is familiar, but not this. He points at your mount, staring at it for a good minute. His voice is quiet and young, not older than 30. If you were standing next to each other, he would be almost a head shorter than you, but for now he towers over you. He has sunken cheeks and sloped shoulders, and while his gray woolen robe was never pretty, it's now close to being a rag, and his sandals reveal long toenails. I observe him more closely. His eyes are as brown and dark as the grasses of this very bog. His left earring is made of a tusk and a feather, while the right one is an hourglass made of silver, though a broken wing makes it at all times tilted under its own weight. The leather strips on his wrists and ankles hold beads, pieces of amber, old game dice, and tiny skulls of birds and critters. Even more cords are hanging from his neck, some of them so long they reach his stomach. They carry countless amulets, some of them torn, dried, shabby, or fragmented, and you spot among them small boxes made of wood and bone, as well as leather pouches which hide even more secrets. Were you here before? Mayhap I dreamt you in my sleep. His voice and look are absent. If so, I'm Thyrsus, the Turf Warden. Huh. Alright, my suspicion is this is going to be an interesting conversation. It also could be quite a long one. So I think actually maybe what we'll do is just call it right here for today. Things have improved somewhat and then gone rapidly sideways again. It turns out I am not the best at dealing with wildlife. I really need better armor and a better axe, and I don't know how we're ever going to get close enough, anywhere close, to having the money for either of those things. It seems like it's really, really hard to keep any belongings together in this game. Anyway, that's going to be it for us for today. Thank you all so much for watching. When you come back next time, we're just going to have a nice little meeting with this turf warden, which definitely won't result in anything else terrible happening to us. I'm sure of it. And we'll see you then.